This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. Coming up today, we take a look at the legal battles heating up in states after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. As inflation continues to rise, we'll explore how more Americans are looking at side jobs to make ends meet. Then later, we'll take a look at a sharp decline with millennials attending church and an uplifting story of a special ceremony honoring 7 modern-day church pioneers. But first, our top story. Shinzo Abe, a former Japanese prime minister, was assassinated today. A conservative and one of his nation's most powerful and influential figures. He died after being shot during a campaign speech in western Japan. The 67-year-old Abe was shot from behind minutes after he started his speech. He was airlifted to a hospital for emergency treatment, but was not breathing and his heart had stopped. He was pronounced dead later at the hospital, according to NHK Public Television. Police arrested the suspected gunman at the scene. The attack shocked many in Japan, which is one of the world's safest nations and has some of the strictest gun control laws anywhere. Abe was Japan's longest-serving leader before stepping down in 2020. President Biden is expected to take executive action today to protect access to abortion, this according to 3 sources. Biden is looking to formalize instructions to the Departments of Justice and Health and Human Services. The executive action is set to push back on potential efforts that could limit the ability of women to access federally approved medication for abortions or to travel across state lines to access clinical abortion services. Now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, legal battles in multiple states are heating up. CBN's Brody Carter has a look at how individual states are redrawing the lines when it comes to legal abortion.
The Supreme Court's ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade is expected to lead to abortion bans in roughly half the states, 13 of which have already initiated so-called trigger laws banning the procedure. Now some states that want to protect abortion are taking action.
For now, it's up to the states to determine whether women get reproductive health care. And in North Carolina, they still can.
In North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper signed an executive order Wednesday to protect both abortion providers as well as women who've crossed state lines to get an abortion. North Carolina is an outlier state in the South that could see a surge of women from surrounding states who want to get an abortion.
Your zip code should not determine your rights.
And Colorado's governor said the state won't cooperate with other states' abortion investigations, signing its executive order to protect women and abortion clinics from being disciplined. Lawyers there are already building a defense.
Those kind of prosecutions are going to look like first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter. Then you have all the providers who are assisting. You've got aiding and abetting of those crimes, which are also very serious crimes.
And in Mississippi. More protesters clashed Thursday outside the Jackson Women's Health Organization, the state's only abortion clinic. Mississippi's trigger law has closed the clinic's doors for good, leaving emotions running high.
Men are the evil here.
The clinic will move to New Mexico, although it is appealing the law to the state Supreme Court. And another legal case, this one in Kentucky. 2 abortion clinics are in circuit court trying to block the state's near total ban on abortion. A judge issued a temporary restraining order stopping the ban last week. If granted, the injunction would suspend the state law while the case is litigated. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Former President Trump's White House counsel will testify before the January 6th committee today. Pat Cipollone will answer questions in a private deposition that will be recorded. The House Select Committee investigating the attack on the Capitol issued a subpoena to Cipollone last month. Witnesses have testified that he was present at many important moments in the aftermath of the election as President Trump tried to challenge the results. As inflation and consumer prices continue to soar, more Americans are working extra hours, often taking side jobs. As Charlene Aaron shows us, the need for extra money is to cover everyday living expenses.
Before prices at the pump and supermarket started taking off, economists noticed a growing number of Americans putting money toward credit card debt or building their savings. Now, according to a new survey by Bankrate, 41% of Americans need a side income just to help pay for monthly expenses, from housing to utilities to food.
When prices started going up and inflation started happening, I really had to take a step back, and I realized I actually wasn't going to be able to finish the semester out.
Halfway through her senior year, 23-year-old Shayna Bourne felt the need to drop out of college due to her tight budget. After becoming a full-time nanny, Shayna soon realized she would need more to make ends meet. That forced her to turn a hobby into a second job.
I had a camera. It was kind of just a hobby, and I would, go out with friends and shoot, or if I went on vacation. But I realized that that was a skill set that I did have and equipment I had. And so the Lord's blessed me with great clients, and I've been able to utilize that as a source of a second income.
As the cost of living continued to go up, Shayna then picked up a third job.
The extra money is going towards my immediate bills. I've gone through my finances over and over and over, and it's like there's just a little extra needed in each place, whether it's gas or groceries even. Rent has actually taken an uptick in the last few months.
Shayna is not alone. Inflation is driving more than a third of Americans to increase working hours due to rising prices. Bankrate's Ted Rossman says that any additional income is often going toward putting food on the table or paying rent.
Fewer people are using this money for discretionary expenses. Fewer people are boosting their savings. Not that many people are paying down debt. It's primarily a day-to-day expenses kind of story.
Shayna says that describes many she knows.
I think everyone's kind of struggling right now. I think everyone's looking for ways to make ends meet. It would be a stretch for me to try to think of a friend or family member who's not trying to get additional income.
Rossman says that underscores the financial burden many are carrying.
It's just too bad because I would hope that if you're doing that, you're getting ahead. Maybe the prize at the end of the rainbow is a vacation, or that you're going to knock out your credit card debt, or that you're going to boost your retirement fund. It's tough when you're doing this extra stuff just to kind of stay on that treadmill.
Meanwhile, Shayna tries to keep her college degree hope alive as she continues to do what she can now just to stay afloat.
I'm trying to build that income for whatever is to come, but I'm not sure how long I'll be doing this.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Turning now to concerns over public education. A new poll shows it could impact how parents vote in the November election. The Harris poll was commissioned by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. It reveals that 82% of parents would be willing to vote for a candidate of a different political party based on their position on education. And education is the second most important issue for parents who voted in federal, state, and local elections. The poll questioned more than 5,000 parents with kids in school from K through 12. Coming up, see what's behind a mass exodus of millennials leaving the faith. Stay with us. Welcome back to NewsWatch. Daily prayer, church attendance, and the number of people who identify themselves as Christians are all on the decline. This trend includes the rise of the group known as religious nuns, people with no religious affiliation. CBN's Brody Carter explores why so many Christians are leaving the faith and what's being done to bring them back.
If you want to know how far my love can go, just how deep, just how wide.
John Steingard's faith journey reflects America's changing religious landscape. Once part of a Christian band, he's joined a burgeoning group that blurs the traditional lines of religious identification.
I definitely don't think I literally believe in the God that most Christians would say that they believe in, but I'm not so convinced that Christian faith and practices is always a harmful thing.
And he's not alone. Study after study shows Christianity is not the force it once was.
That data haunts me.
In 2021, Pew Research found self-identified Christians making up 63% of the U.S. population, a drop from 75% just 10 years ago. The majority of this decline is happening among Protestants, dropping 10 points in the last decade, while Catholicism remains relatively unchanged. During the same period, the group called religious nuns has steadily grown.
When we ask people about their religious identification, are you Protestant, Catholic, Mormon, Orthodox Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, agnostic, something else, or nothing in particular? The religious nuns are those people who answer that question by describing themselves as atheist or agnostic or as simply nothing in particular.
In studying the secular shift, researcher Gregory Smith says he sees no sign of this trend slowing down. Religious nuns currently account for about 3 in 10 U.S. adults.
That's, triple, perhaps even getting close to quadruple the share who said that about 3 decades ago.
Other indicators that Americans are growing less religious include prayer. Fewer than half of adults do so daily. 30% say they pray seldomly or not at all. Still, 4 in 10 say they consider religion to be very important in their lives.
So many of these people they grew up in our children's ministries. They grew up in our youth groups. Somehow we missed them, man. We were unable to get them ready to live in the world that their life is playing out in now.
Renowned pastor, author, and church planter Matt Chandler says the church must see and accept this harsh reality before it can move forward.
You've got the kingdom of God and you've got the kingdom of darkness. And really, I think what you're seeing is there was, I think, a collapse of robust discipleship for an extended period of time.
To better understand the reasons why someone would leave their faith, I talked with Steingard, former lead singer for Hawk Nelson, a Canadian Christian rock band.
Anybody that leaves any religious community, they have to figure out how to sort of hold themselves together and also how to make their way in the world. And that's actually not so easy.
Steingard, whose father and father-in-law are both pastors, announced his decision on Instagram at the height of the pandemic. His announcement sent shockwaves through the Christian community.
People like myself who decide to leave a faith tradition tend to be very focused on the negative aspects of that tradition when we leave, right? We tend to want to point out all the things that we think are harmful or unfair or, unjust.
Steingard believes 3 major reasons people are currently leaving the church include differing beliefs on gay rights, failed support for social justice issues, and political platforms using faith to advance certain polarizing agendas.
The church has to own that we really dropped the ball on discipling men and women for the world that they live in. Even the 1 million or so kids that have left our church present a stunning opportunity for innovation around evangelism, around reaching our neighbor.
Chandler sees the rise of religious nuns as an opportunity to sow seeds of hope through his church planting ministry. To encourage support, he plans to fund each new church planter who partners with the Acts 29 network up to $50,000. Today, the network supports over 700 churches in 50 countries.
I don't know who's watching this, what their heartbeat would be, but where you have a healthy local church made up of people who love Jesus Christ and know his word, darkness gets pushed back in 1,000 different directions. It's not one big church that actually threatens the gates of hell. It's 1,000 little lights in the darkness that kind of make up the brightness and the heat of the gospel. And so I want to be about pouring into that and giving my influence towards that, giving my time and energy and money towards that.
Chandler and others remain undaunted by America's religious realignment. They still see fertile ground for outreach to nuns and others, and for growth among professing believers through genuine Christian discipleship. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, they're modern-day heroes of the church, and they're being honored by some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Head to a star-studded gala at the Museum of the Bible and see how these American trailblazers are passing the baton to a new generation of leaders.
In-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Thanks for staying with us. For fans of gospel music, you're going to love this story. A special ceremony was held to honor 7 modern-day pioneers who've contributed to the church, the country, and beyond. John Jessup has some of the highlights.
Glitzy gowns and the stirring sound of gospel music filled the museum halls for the first Blessing of the Elders ceremony. The purpose, to honor trailblazing pastors in the Black church and recognize their overall contributions to the American religious experience.
Are we here to have a good time?
The star-studded evening included gospel recording artists B.B. Winans and Erica Campbell as hosts, with musical performances by Fred Hammond, Lecrae, the Clark Sisters, and more. The packed theater honored two women, Bishop Vashti McKenzie and pastor and singer Shirley Caesar.
I'm standing in a building that represents the Lord. It represents the Word of God. And so I feel like I'm being represented too.
And five men, Pastor Tony Evans, Bishop Charles Blake, civil rights leader John Perkins, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and Pastor A.R. Bernard. The ceremony also symbolic of the passing of the baton to the next wave of preachers and teachers. And even some of Hollywood's biggest names came to pay homage.
Man gives the award, God gives the reward.
In his acceptance speech, Pastor Bernard highlighted the Black church's roots in slavery, adding that the institution was really born out of the system of segregation, when literal walls separated worship between fellow believers.
We did not mimic the white Christian church in America. We actually created a parallel with our own identity, our own hymns, our own style of preaching and worship that was initially rooted in our slave experience. So it became central to the Black community. It preserved Black history and Black tradition.
At first, the Black church gave African Americans a sense of dignity and grew to form a basis for community and activism. More recently, during the pandemic, it lent its credibility as a public health partner, setting up clinics in Black neighborhoods. Another issue at the top of the list, confronting crime, something Bishop McKenzie, the first woman to lead the AME Church, said requires Christians to be bold and bound in unity.
Stand firm in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Even though God will send you into hostile places, stand firm.
You cannot talk about America and not talk about the Black church.
Organizers and historians agree the impact of the Black church reaches beyond color, noting how it served as the conscience of America in the fight for civil rights and modeled reconciliation and love in the wake of tragedies like the massacre at Mother Emanuel Church, where the families of the victims memorably forgave the shooter.
And I think that the Black church is poised to really be the bridge builder in a very divided nation.
A belief echoed by others.
So when we can come together and say that God teaches us that we are all equally loved, valued, and appreciated by our Creator God, then it helps us come together and unify and serve the one God that we all love.
From Moses to Joshua, Elijah to Elisha, Naomi and Ruth, and Jesus and the disciples, the blessing of the elder and passing the torch can be seen throughout Scripture, transferring vision and legacy from one generation to the next. At this inaugural event, leaders not only acknowledged the history and influence of the Black church, but a future where there's one unified church reconciled in love, promoting the good news to bring healing to a divided nation and a broken world. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, we'll have details about an upcoming concert event to help the homeless on Skid Row. Stay with us. Maverick City Music is set to sing at a special Skid Row concert on July 25th to benefit the homeless in the Los Angeles area. It's a partnership with Los Angeles Mission, a homeless shelter serving disadvantaged men, women, and children. The event is called Music Matters, Maintaining Strategic Investments in Community, and will include outdoor fellowship, prayer, food vendors, and on-site showers. Reverend Troy Vaughn, president and CEO of Los Angeles Mission, says he has a vision of turning Skid Row into a place of hope by helping the displaced get off the streets. Again, the event is on July 25th from 12 to 5 p.m. in Los Angeles, and you can read more about this story at cbnnews.com. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can talk to us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day and a great weekend.